Welcome to the Slow Smoked Pigskin podcast. I'm Darren.
And I mean Drew. And this is
our podcast.
What are you doing? You're not Aaron.
You're not Drew.
I think we should go.
That was weird, right?
Yeah, it was.
Anyways, I'm Aaron,
I'm Drew.
and this is our podcast.
Subscribe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 37 of the Slow Smoke Pigskin podcast. That's Drew. I'm Aaron.
Hello.
I think. Well, week 5 results. Another glorious week. Wonderful. At least only one of us is depressed this week, I guess.
One of us is happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and talk about why one of us?
Oh, no, please. You do the honors.
Yeah.
Tell me how great of a week I had, please.
So, weekly winner was Drew. He won because he was the overachiever and did way more than he was ever supposed to by any stretch of anyone's imagination. Somebody went off for you on Monday night or something to help you out, didn't he?
Tolbert.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. Jalen Tolbert had 18 points, which who would have thought to get you a win on Monday night?
I thought it was going to happen, therefore I put him in my lineup. Okay.
Yeah, sure you did.
Really didn't have any choice.
Congrats, you win the week.
Thanks.
Wonderful,
thanks.
great. Okay,
right.
why don't you talk more about your matchup?
All right, let's go ahead and talk about the matchup. Biggest blowout and overachiever by myself. I had 161.11 points versus Neil, who had 93.42.
Ouchie.
Had I set the perfect lineup, I would have had 186.91 points, and Neil still would have lost at 118.86. But yes.
At least like when you win and had zero chance, it makes you feel slightly better.
It does. Yeah. But anyways, I was led by Brock Bowers with 20.7 and DJ Moore with 25 points. Yes, that Chicago offense is clicking a little bit.
I don't know I go that far.
I said a little bit.
Okay, fine.
Neil was led with Jaden Daniels at 20.72 and Rashid Shaheed with 18.8 points.
That one's like so deceiving because like most of that was like on one long touchdown.
Yeah.
Other than that, like it was not a great game.
The first two and a half quarters were good, and then it just kind of.
And now Carr's out. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but Carr's out a couple of weeks, so Shaheed's gonna be questionably useful now, and they haven't decided if they're using that whatever that kid's name who came in or Spencer Rattler. Anyways, sorry.
I don't know.
Continue. Sorry.
All right. My one bust in the lineup was Rome Odunze with 6.5 points, which I mean it was a bust, but he was only slated to have 7.39 points, but still,
that's not a whole lot of bust.
That's the biggest bust I had.
Yeah.
Neil with Davon Achan, 12.2 on a 12.77. Now he got hurt, so that was why which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah, that was a bummer. You could have started any other quarterback on your team other than Darnold, who you want to talk about your bust? There's your bust. 6.26 from Sam Darnold. That's a bust, buddy.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, he could have started Daniel Jones with 21, Matt Stafford with 13, or old man Joe Flacco with 27. I can't remember who I heard Flacco was talking to. Maybe it was Anthony Richardson, because Anthony Richardson's pretty young. But I guess it turns out that Joe Flacco is like 8 days younger than his mom. Than Anthony Richardson's mom.
Got it.
It was something like that. It was pretty funny. I should have vetted that quote before, but it was something along those lines, which made it really funny.
Yes.
Then Neil left Jaleel McLaughlin on his bench with 10 points. That's not bad. And then He, ooh, ouch. He started Jaden Daniels, who had 20 points. Kids look good. But this was the week that both Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow went nuclear. So
Yes.
both of them had 34 plus points. So, yeah,
And
that's
Cousins
a bummer.
had 5 touchdowns and Burrow had 3.
Other way around.
Other way around? Okay.
Cousins had 4 with 509 yards passing, and Burrow had 5 with 392 yards passing. So
ridiculous.
Yeah, they both kind of went off. So we already mentioned Devon Achane left the game early. He's got a concussion, so who knows when we'll be back. And Drew has Rashee Rice on his team, who we've been waiting to hear. Now he had surgery earlier today. They repaired a torn LCL, which is better than an ACL, but he's still done for the season officially. I know, I've been waiting to see what happened to drop him or something in some leagues, but now he's officially done for the year.
Done for the season.
Maybe that means Kelsey is now useful again, and Juju went off, but we'll get there in a minute. So, yeah.
All right. Matchup number 2 was Aaron and Adrian. Aaron did have the highest points in a loss.
Yeah.
Congratulations for that. He had 140.42 points. Could have had 165.82 had he set his optimal lineup against Adrian, who he had the most efficient lineup with 151.25 points. Had he set the optimal, would have been 159.02. This matchup could have gone a little different one way or the other, but
yeah, my optimal lineup would have beat his optimal lineup.
Yeah.
Lovely, wonderful, great.
Anyways, Aaron did have DeAndre Swift go off for 19 points versus 10.55, and his Broncos defense at 22.88 versus 9.92, which they were projected to do. Adrian had Lamar Jackson for 32.42 points versus a 20.67, and Ramondre Stevenson with just over doubling his projection at 17.2 versus the 8.19.
Just real quick, Ramondre Stevenson. They said that he was not going to get the start. Now, I knew that did not mean that he wasn't going to play, but that dude, I sat him in another league, and then I was all excited that he was in Adrian's starting lineup because he wasn't going to get the start. I think he missed the first carry, and then it was all him. I hate lying coaches. Okay, my rant is done.
What the punishment is that you don't get to start, but you get to go in the very next play?
Basically,
what?
It was so
he's
annoying.
the better running back just because he's fumbled the ball. Yes, he's got fumbling issues, but your better option is to. What's it make a difference? So what? Now he's back in good graces, and now he's going to start, and he'll give you your 8.19 points next week. Don't worry.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. Sorry. Continue.
All right. So bust for Aaron. Again, we're talking about Josh Allen and his wonderful trade with 14.64 points against his 20. I mean, it's not that much of a bust, but 4 points would have won you.
It's better than 7 points that he put up last week, but it's still pretty bad when you gave up a lot to get the quote-unquote number 1 quarterback.
Yes. He
hasn't been running much this year, which is weird.
Well, he doesn't. They've been handing the ball off a lot, and it's been. Anyways, Breece Hall is the biggest disappointment, and it's been week after week after week. He's got
2 in a row.
0.2 points over his 13.86. We can get to that later. We can talk about it now. The whole Jets team is just in shambles right now.
Yeah, I mean. So we can talk about it now. They let go of Robert Saleh this morning, it was kind of surprising. I guess I didn't realize that he was 20 and 36 in his time there. It didn't feel like it was that bad, but I guess you forget that they've just been miserable with Zach Wilson at quarterback, which it's kind of a bummer. I liked Saleh as a coach, but apparently he's not getting it done. He's losing the locker room and other drama going on. Fine, Aaron Rodgers gets his little whiny crybaby stuff, and they're not going to win anyways, so we'll see who they bring in next year.
Yeah.
Although I saw something online today that was dude, the Jets could do the most jacked up thing ever and just make Belichick their head coach and take back over the East Division, the AFC East.
The AFC East, yeah. I mean, he hasn't produced, obviously. I feel like this is his third season? That sound about right?
Solid?
Maybe his fourth, yeah.
20 and 36, so it's got to be his fourth year.
Fourth year. So his first two, he had what's his nuts as the quarterback. Last year, he was his like saving grace year with Aaron Rodgers coming in, and he got hurt. So that's kind of a wash. And then they've had one good game, and they had a bad game, a good game, and then two bad games. Yeah. Like,
it's also
I read something that said that he was getting ready to fire the offensive coordinator, and he got canned. So I don't know.
Nathaniel Hackett's horrible too, the OC, and it's just weird because apparently, like in the history of the Jets, they've like only ever fired a coach mid-season once. So this was a surprise, but
yeah, I mean, yeah. All right, Aaron Rodgers is running that team, so he might as well be a player coach.
Yeah. So the only other thing you didn't mention was how Bijan Robinson also let down Adrian a bit, 9.2 points. I left Kareem Hunt on my bench, who had 18.2, because why would I ever think that Kareem Hunt in 2024 would have a better day than Breece Hall? Adrian left Wan'Dale Robinson, who, I mean, considering his other wide receivers, makes sense. But yeah, injuries. Nico Collins left the game early with a hamstring. At first, I heard he was listed as day-to-day, and then they moved it to week-to-week. So I'm not sure yet if he's going to miss a game, which is a bummer, even though he's not on my team. He's just been a beast this year. So
number 2 wide receiver, I believe?
Possibly. I know Malik Neighbors was number 1, but he didn't play this week. So maybe on a points-per-game basis, it's still Neighbors. But either way, Nico Collins has looked fantastic. And then Joe Mixon, even though he'd been getting in some limited practices, he did not play again this week. Hopefully he's back next week because it is crushing me to not have him.
Yeah. He's like he's a day-to-day, week-to-week type of thing. Like they don't know if it's going to be or not. Like there's no really time frame. But all right. So our third matchup of the week, we had Janelle and Jason S. Janelle finally getting those 2 W's. I think she got it last week too. I'm not sure.
Jolie got one last week.
Okay. She had 149.92 points versus Jason's 105.22. If they both would have set optimal lineups, it would have been 175 over 0.72 versus 130.26. So not much change there. Janelle had Jamar Chase go off for 37.3 points versus his 12.58 that he was projected. And George Kittle, upon his return, had 18.4 over his 10.22.
Chase can that's the thing about Chase is he can have these days 10 for 193 and 2. Like,
yeah,
that's a week winning line. Like, that's great.
Yeah. Jason had Darnell Mooney, who went out for 27 versus 8.24. He seems to be kind of the real deal, and it's a good complementary to Landon and that offense.
Yeah, like I when Mooney had a good game or so, like it was kind of questionable. I was like, he was okay in Chicago. I don't know. I think he's a legit target and somebody you want in a lineup at this point. Bust for Janelle. Najee Harris with only 8.7 points, considering, Jalen Warren was out, Cordero Patterson was out, thought that he would get the work, but he didn't have a great day in the process. Deebo Samuel, 2.5 points. That one's surprising, but we didn't mention that it did in Drew's matchup. That did mean that Brandon Ayuk finally had a decent week. The fact that Deebo did not. Bench heroes for Janelle. Who the heck is JSS?
Juju Smith-Schuster.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I've never heard him referred to as JSS. I was thinking you mistyped JSN. So, yeah, Juju went off on Monday night. Like, what? I thought he was dead. Like, I didn't even realize he was still around. But he put up 16.5 points.
He caught the ball. Amazing. What happens when you catch the ball?
Yeah, crazy. And then Kaimi Fairbairn put up 16, but I think like the week before he had like 1 or 2. So Fairbairn's been inconsistent.
Yes.
Jonathan Taylor missed this game with an ankle injury. Malik Neighbors missed it with a concussion. Devin Singletary missed it with a groin. And if you hadn't heard already, Adam Thielen got put on IR with a hamstring injury. So Jonathan Taylor, from what I heard, is likely to miss at least one more. You would expect Neighbors should be able to only have to miss one game with a concussion.
Yeah.
And Devin Singletary's kind of up in the air, except for the fact that Tyron Tracy looked really good in relief. So did that just cut into some of Singletary's playing time?
Maybe. I don't know. Those concussions, if it's not something that like a Tua where it was obvious, clear, where you're out and you're cold, and it's just like a helmet to helmet and you get out and they say you have a concussion, it seems to be that you're going to miss 1 week and you'll be back the second.
Yeah, after they changed like the status a couple, like what was that, 1 or 2 seasons ago?
Yeah, just after COVID, I believe.
Yeah, like it's pretty much most of the time a concussion's going to miss 1 game. Yep. It's kind of, I mean, especially considering Neighbors got his in the Dallas game on Thursday night and still didn't make it back for Sunday. So, yeah. All right, next match.
Yeah, anyways. Okay. Where are we at? Matchup number 4. This was the narrowest victory, and this was our closest matchup of the week all around. We had Josh and Steve. Josh scoring 140.13 versus Steve's 135.33. However, had they set optimal lineups, Josh would have had 163.12 and Steve would have had 163.23. So Steve could have won by 0.1 points had he set a better lineup. Not to mention, he only needed a field goal to win to win this matchup.
And the part that
or an extra point.
That, well, he needed more than that slightly, but his kicker missed an extra point, and he ended up with 0 points. He needed 5 points out of his kicker. Like, wasn't a whole lot. I'm going to call Steve out. He texted me during Sunday about how his efficiency numbers were ruined because he set the wrong tight end, and it's like karma got him back for being a smartass on his efficiency numbers. But that's rough. And then anybody who hasn't noticed, Josh had his team name previously as Hot Garbage. He has since changed his name to Punching Above His Weight because he
100%.
Team, everybody was like, "Oh, that's a rough team to get," and he's now 7-3. So we no longer feel bad for Josh.
No, not anymore. But going off with their respective players, the booms for Josh, Rico Dowdle had a great game with 17.4 and
finally showed up,
right? Versus 8.57. And T. Higgins, I mean, anybody on the Bengals had a great day. 24.8 on his 10.54. Steve, despite the Jets doing what they do, Garrett Wilson still had 22.6. And his Vikings defense went off for 22.23 points.
Yeah, I mean, T. Higgins also had 2 touchdowns, which was nice to see T. Higgins finally be healthy and show up. Like, we know he can be good when it happens. Yeah. And I'm still mad Steve got the Vikings defense over me in a waiver pickup because I think I put in a $0 bid because I did it in an off day when I thought nobody else was paying attention. And now, well, except for the fact I had Denver's defense that actually did well. But Dontavian Wicks was the hot waiver wire pickup this week, and he just disappointed 3 points and just drops all over the place. Like, you know now why he's like the 3rd or 4th wide receiver on that team. I mean, you couldn't have had a better situation for him. You know, Jaden Reed was still there, but Christian Watson was out with the injury, and Romeo Doubs was suspended for the game because of conduct detrimental to the team. Wicks saw lots of targets and just couldn't do anything with them. Steve, we already mentioned, he got 0 points from a kicker because he made 1 extra point, missed 1, and had no field goals. So that's a rough way to lose when all you need is 4 or 5 points out of a kicker. You'd think that's pretty solid.
Especially when he does trades for kickers. Like, you would think that he would know what he was doing, but I don't know. Maybe not.
Bench heroes, Josh, Roshan Johnson, 14.5, which is killing me as the Swift manager because they keep giving Roshan Johnson these, like,
he's getting the touchdowns.
Goal line touchdowns and, like, not much else. And it's like, God, Swift, just finish it. And then Tucker Kraft, who I don't even think I realized was on Steve's team with 22.8 points. Like, if you remember, Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave got drafted in the same draft, and Tucker Kraft was the later round pick, and everyone thought Musgrave was it. Musgrave is, like, disappeared. He's
gone.
He's on a milk carton now because Tucker Kraft has taken over.
He really has. I picked up as my tight end for 2 other leagues because I have Laporta, who was on a bye, but he might stay in the starting lineup over Laporta at this point.
It's kind of hard with how bad the tight end position's been to put in somebody over Tucker Kraft.
Right, it's kind of why Wicks didn't really go off, because they've got Reed and then they've got Kraft, and there's only so many options you can do.
And Wicks keeps not catching the ball.
Yes.
No new injuries really in this matchup. Devontae Adams we knew was going to be out. I wouldn't be surprised
out until he gets traded.
Yeah, he's very likely played his last snap. I heard they were asking for like a second for him, which in the NFL, that's a high cap hit when you're going to. I also heard a report today, I don't know if it's factual, that the only team that has come up with made an offer that would meet their requirements, I guess, is the Chiefs, but they don't want to make that trade in division. The last thing they want to do is in division give the Chiefs Devontae Adams and a better chance at the Super Bowl.
You're basically just saying, I'm going to win the toilet bowl, and here's the Super Bowl.
Yeah, A.J. Brown was out. Well, I mean, he was on bye, but with injuries, the hope is that he'll be back next week, and we shall see.
At this point, when we're recording this, like the major injury news hasn't really come out yet. So
nope.
Cool. All right. Matchup number 5. Jason F versus Eddie. This game was the lowest points in a win, with Jason with 118.39. Had he set his optimal lineup, it would have been almost 142 points. Eddie lost with 95. That seems a little more realistic, for Eddie's team. Although had he start his optimal lineup, he would have had almost 124 points. So Jason had Bo Nix, who had a good day at 23 points versus his 11.5 projection. And Chuba Hubbard, I think we talked about him last week as well, had 15.5 points versus his 11.5 points. Eddie had Chase Brown go off for almost 15 points versus his 8. And finally, Kyle Pitts has a good day where he went for double his projection at 12 points.
Points with this tight end situation right now is great.
That's great for a tight end.
Yeah, but Kirk Cousins threw for 500 yards, and all Pitts ended up with was 12.3 points.
I have to look to see what his actual, he didn't get a touchdown, right? It was all it was all yards. I'm
pulling it up. Keep talking. No, he had 7 catches for 88 yards, no touchdown. Yeah. So,
he had 0.1% of Cousins.
No, 88 yards.
I know. I'm over exaggerating the fact that he out of his 500, he only had a low.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. I mean, London had 154. Mooney had well over 100.
I don't know what. Bijan didn't have a good game, but I think Algier actually had a decent game, if I'm not mistaken. But the bust for Jason, Juwan Jennings, after having I think 2 good weeks in a row.
You knew the moment that somebody you knew once Debo was back that Juwan Jennings was gonna disappear.
he's not a secret that like all of a sudden like we're just gonna hide him on the field and throw him the ball all the time. Like that's the same thing with Dowdle. Like, oh, he had a good game against the Steelers. Like he's gonna get fed the ball, but like they're not. That offense isn't rolling enough for him to be like, I'm gonna get 100 yards. Even if he doesn't get any touchdowns, if he's gonna get 100 yards, like that's a decent way to have him play. But it's not gonna happen. But another disappointing week for Marvin Harrison at 4.6 points versus 11.5 that he was projected. He had one good week and just hasn't.
Crazy, like there's people coming out of and don't get me wrong, I know situations are different and everything, but like coming out of the draft or coming into the draft, there's people who are like, oh, Neighbors is better than Harrison, and people are like, nah, I don't believe
I don't think that it's a better thing. I don't think it's a talent problem.
Better for fantasy
100%. That makes sense. Like the only reason why he got 4.6 points is because of one of the last plays of the game, I think, where Murray just threw the ball up and he happened to catch it 30 yards down the field. Like otherwise, it would have been like a 2-point week for him. Like I don't know. Like focus on getting your star receiver the ball a little bit more, at least for fantasy's sake. Jeez.
Lots of points left on the bench for Jason from Frankie Louvu. His linebacker could have got 18 points. And then Eddie's taxi squad, he's got Brian Thomas Jr., who had 21.7 points. Once again, he's starting to catch stride in the NFL and looking way better than, Marvin Harrison Jr. at this moment.
Right.
Eddie, you might have to pull him off the taxi squad and put that boy in your lineup. Well, then again, Eddie doesn't want to win anyways, even though he tends to do so somehow. But no new injuries to really talk about from either of these teams. Just whoever's already dealing with stuff.
Yeah. All right. Our last matchup of the week was Joe versus Raph. Joe got the award for least efficient at 83.51 points. And even if he had started his perfect lineup, it would have only been 116. So I don't think he was beating anybody this week.
It's an off week, buddy.
Raph went off with 143.39. He could have had 177.11 had he started his optimal lineup. Joe was led by Josh Downs at almost 12 points, and Justin Tucker, his kicker, at 13 points.
When your kicker is your top scorer.
Not a good week.
No.
Raph, you're welcome. I threw the Bears in as a boom, 19 points. And Drake London at 27.4. We've already talked about him a little bit. Joe was pretty much the rest of his team.
I'm looking at the matchup, and every player on Joe's starting lineup is red except for Justin Tucker and Josh Downs.
Everybody else was under projection. Purdy, Kamara, Jones, who we'll talk about in a minute, got hurt. Olave, all did not make even close to his projection. Raph started Xavier Leggett and got 1.3 points out of him.
Yeah, that's kind of disappointing. But I think he picked up an injury in the game. We thought maybe with Thielen out that he would do something, but apparently not. Ironically, like Joe's bench hero was Alec Pierce, so if he had started two Colts wide receivers, apparently what you have to do is you have to start Colts receivers when it's Joe Flacco.
100%.
When Anthony Richardson comes back, you got to sit them all, including Michael Pittman.
No, but if you haven't figured that out yet,
put everybody in.
For sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense because Flacco throws the ball.
Yeah. And then
throws it well.
And then Raph's bench hero, take Bigsby, who it's kind of like he got some hype before last year, and then he had a super disappointing rookie season. But he's looking way better than Travis Etienne at the moment. Like the coach is coming out and said that Etienne's still the starter, but that's a couple games in a row where Bigsby's looking good. So
yeah, and I read that Etienne hurt his shoulder again at the end of the game, and that's why he wasn't playing.
Yep.
I mean, again, he's the starter, so he's going to play the first three and out, and then Bigsby's going to go in and play.
Etienne was banged up coming into the game, and I think he got more banged up, so his health will matter a lot. But they've also said for a year or two that they didn't want Etienne to have the workload that he had. So if Bigsby shows he can play, it may be like a 60-40. Mm-hmm. Like that's not going to be Etienne as a giant workhorse.
No, and that's kind of what the NFL has gone to. Like it's no longer a one running back committee with like someone coming in for third downs, but it's like you have your goal line, you have your passing, you have your and it's like it's hard for it. That's hard for fantasy. So it's like keep that in mind moving forward. Like how do you want to put your team together?
Yep. So injuries. Anthony Richardson is likely back in 1 week. I heard that if it was like super important, he could have possibly played. But they're being smart with their young quarterback that they're hoping is the franchise. Aaron Jones, who's been looking so good, had a hip injury. What does long term mean here?
I read that it's a hip and it's a long term injury, but that's all that. Like, they're not saying what it is. They're not saying how long. It's just the type of injury that it is. Apparently, is a long term, meaning I'm assuming 4 to 6 weeks is long term. If you're talking about NFL at this point in time,
if he's missing that, that's a real bummer.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all our matchups. Let's talk about the standings. Even with getting 2 losses, Steve stays in first place at 7-3. Josh, with his 2 additional wins, moves up to second place with also a record of 7-3. But Steve owns a tiebreaker. Adrian and Janelle both got 2 wins, which bumped them up a couple of spots each. Janelle at 3, Adrian at 4, both at 6-4. Also at 6-4 are Jason Freeman and Raph. Jason actually dropped with because he went 1-1 this week to move to the 5 spot. Raph moved up from 7 to 6 at 6-4. Joe, with his absolute garbage week, dropped way down to 5-5. I went 1-1, so I stayed at the 8th spot. Drew, with his week winning week, moved from last place all the way up to 9th, which dropped all the other folks down 1 spot. Jason Smith at 10, Neil at 11, and Eddie at 12, all at 3 and 7.
That's the great thing about being in last place. You can't go any lower, and you can only go up. So
I need to get back to the playoff spot. That'd be nice.
I know. Obviously it's early. It's still a tight match. Like 7-3 is not like out of reach by any means.
No.
Even 3-7, like you get a couple of weeks together, and especially in the bye weeks, like this is the time where you can make up ground. You can also lose a lot of ground, but it's still early.
And when you look at it, I think I'm 3rd in points for.
Yeah.
I've just had some bad weeks and some bad luck, and I'm coming. Don't you worry. I'll make the playoffs, y'all. Normally we talk about waivers, but we're recording this Tuesday night instead of Wednesday night, so we'll find out what happens tomorrow. I haven't seen any trades go through. Start sending offers, folks. Now that it's bye weeks, this is the time to start talking.
I've sent offers.
Okay. Giving some updates on the bet board. Well, Calvin Ridley did not play this week, and Zay Flowers did and went off. So now Zay Flowers has a commanding lead over Ridley by 22 fantasy points. Raph versus Jason and Raph versus Joe. They were doing it based on record, not by points.
Record?
Like, Drew put record.
I put total points.
He put points here. So Raph and Jason are currently tied at 6-4. Joe, with his 2 losses, fell behind 5-5. So right now, technically, I think Jason owns the tiebreaker over Raph. I don't know if we established that in their bet, how that works if they tie in record, but hopefully that just doesn't happen.
But for some reason, I had points in my head. I don't know. My bad.
I don't know. We might have to double check with them.
They might change it now.
Yeah, right. All right. Other NFL news. So, reminder, everybody, we have another London game which starts at 6:30 Pacific. We noticed that Neil kind of got screwed by it with his IDP because his IDP got called out, but he had left him in his lineup, and then he could not get him out because the game started so early because that was 5:30 Alaska time. So Drew probably never got that.
He had put in a waiver claim for somebody else, but it goes through, that went through too late.
Yeah.
So leave your player out of your lineup if you have someone that you're replacing.
Yep, that was a real bummer for him. Although I think
it wouldn't have mattered about
it would have made a difference.
Nah.
And then we already mentioned Jets fired Robert Saleh, but their defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich is going to be the interim head coach. So we'll see. And then just want another reminder now that we're into bye weeks. Next one, we got a couple of big players. We got the Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, and Vikings on bye.
I thought the Dolphins were on the bye week the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, right. The Rams and Dolphins are very excited about the bye week because they need it.
Yes.
I heard that there's a chance Cooper Kupp is coming back after the bye. I heard Puka still got some more time, but it's a well-timed bye for the Rams. They might get him back. The Dolphins, I think Tua is still not allowed back the first week because he's got to miss 4 games. But
they put him on. He's on IR, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is good since we said Devon Achane got a concussion. This allows him to make it back potentially without missing a game. And then obviously the Vikings have lots of stars doing well this year. So them being out and their defense is going to have some fantasy impacts. So that's about it for this week. I need to wake my team up. I'm a good fantasy football manager. It's just my players who suck. It's their fault. So yeah. Anything else to say, Drew?
It's early. Relax. It's been a couple. You can get on a roll. You win 2 or 3 weeks in a row. You know, you're okay.
We're getting close to halfway through the fantasy season.
Yeah. You're sitting just fine. Don't worry about it, champ.
We'll see what happens, because if I lose a couple more, it's a fire sale. Everybody, who does anybody want?
Hey, I mean, you've got the team that the people need. You could rebuild easily at this point.
Yeah, dude, let's go. I'll just start selling everything. I want 3 firsts for everybody. I mean, honestly,
what's in that cup right now? Because I don't know.
Whiskey? I mean, if we're talking like Lamb or Jefferson, 3 firsts is probably what you're talking, but I'm not selling them. I'm not
Lamb right now who yells at his quarterback for not throwing the ball correctly?
That was 2. That wasn't this week. That was last week.
You weren't watching the game last night?
Did it happen again?
Yes.
Oh, I missed that part. Of course I was watching the game, and because my wife and I were watching. Not together, because that would have gone poorly.
He threw the ball with double coverage, and Lamb wit on him. And then proceeded to go yell at him. And Dak pretended like he wasn't even there.
Oh, good. All right. Anyways, that's this week. Hopefully next week I can finally be happy to talk, because this has sucked so far.
Yeah. All week you've sucked.
Yeah, I know. I don't like it. All right. Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Cheers.